G'day, wankers. Welcome to another GuitarWank Podcast. Thank you for joining us. I am your host, Troy MacCubbin. You have no say in it. How are you? Are you hanging in? Can shit be more crazier? Apparently not. It's just getting crazier every day. So we'll just keep our level of crazy the same here. GuitarWank episode 219. We are up to, episode 219. Interesting stuff. So we have the amazing Miss Jennifer Batten on the show tonight. Miss Jennifer Batten, who we all know and love. Michael Jackson, Jeff Beck, amongst many others. I've been waiting to get Jen on for a long time. Thank you, Jen. Awesome that you were able to make it. We had to get a pandemic to make it happen, but at least it happened. Anyway, so make sure you check out the new website, guitarwank.com. Still waiting on the merch to get all sorted out. We'll get that up to you as soon as possible. Also, you can go to patreon.com/guitarwank.com and basically get extra lessons off Bruce, GuitarWank minutes. I think we're up to number 9 or 10 GuitarWank minutes. So you can check that out. And within a minute, you can learn something cool. Don't get bombarded with too much information, but you get an amazing lesson. So they're definitely worth it, and everyone's loving those. So you can go to the website, guitarwank.com, click on the link for Patreon, and that'll take you there and sort you all out there. What else is news? Bruce has got Grumps TV live at 5 Wednesday and Saturdays, I believe. So you can check that out. What else, Wyatt? Anything else? Can you think of anything else? No, you can't think of anything else. Also, Bruce is doing his Instagram choruses every day, so check that out. Give him a shout out. But let's sit back and relax and hang with Miss Jennifer Batten and Bruce and Scott. This was a lot of fun. Thanks, Jen. Really appreciate it. And we're going to post a bunch of stuff that Jen is getting up and running and promoting and pushing and helping and all the fun stuff she's doing. So sit back, relax, and enjoy episode 219. We're going to kick off with a track, I believe, from Jen. This is called Inner Journey. I thought this one was fun. And the backstory to this track will be more prominent in the episode. You'll understand. You'll be like, what the... But it all makes sense later. And then we have the next two tracks are Jen's versions of Giant Steps. Her tapping a solo through Giant Steps. Fun, cool stuff. And then there's a rock version at the end. So anyway, lots of interesting stuff today, ladies and gentlemen. Sit back, relax, be safe out there, stay healthy, and all that fun stuff. All right, we'll talk to you guys really soon. Happy guitar wanking.
Of course he's on time.
Yo, Scotty! You there?
What?
Yeah.
Are you throwing that microphone? What the hell? You know?
Let me in there, you bitches.
I'm about to bring in Jennifer.
Yeah.
Hey, Troy, are you getting okay sound off this mic? Because I'm not using my laptop tonight. My laptop's backing up shit right now.
I need it more on the grill.
Okay?
More on the grill of the cabinet.
What's that? Right? Is that okay?
Yeah, it's great, man.
Get a little closer to the paper.
No, is it okay, really? Because usually I'm using my laptop, but it's all right.
Yeah, it's beautiful. Oh, you guys.
The cone, man.
Oh, okay, over here.
I'm bringing in Jen.
Okay, bring her on in here.
We're bringing her in. Here she comes. Here comes Jen.
Woohoo!
Where is she?
Where's Jen? She's coming in. Whoa!
Oh, my goodness.
Look at them
Look
gears.
who it is.
Fuck, I can't see anything.
Oh, well.
There.
You'll be glad in a second.
How are you guys?
Miss Jennifer Batten, this is awesome. It's been a long time coming.
Right? I was just trying to catch up on the wank.
No, stop now. Save yourself. There's no need for it.
No time for a quick wank.
Well,
Introduce
I
our
don't know.
guest there, Troy.
You do it. We're working on our time thing here.
Introduce
Well,
our guest so we can begin.
We're going to begin. We're going to jump straight in because one of out of us four people are professional, and we know it's not us three. So
Definitely isn't us.
well, GuitarWank listeners, welcome to it. I'm super excited. I don't know, Jen, I've been such a huge fan of yours for such a long time, and I'm smitten with you, love. I think you're awesome, and I think you're just a fun, awesome, amazing person. And I've been bugging Scott and Bruce, or Scott, because I know you guys are friends, for ages, and we had to get a pandemic before we could get you on. But I'm glad we got the pandemic and we got Miss Jennifer Batten. Woohoo!
Woohoo!
And thank you. Good night. That was awesome.
Jennifer, I'll tell you the same thing we tell every guest. You'll never work again after you've been on our show. So just
Well,
just
you
so
know what? I'm not working now, so it ain't going to be any different.
Okay. That's good to know.
Yeah, we're working as much as everybody, right?
Right? Yeah.
Oh my! How are you feeling, Bruce? You better?
Yeah, I think I'm better. I don't know. I mean, nothing fell off. You know what I mean?
Okay. You look good.
What is it? Does every time you feel bad, you have to have coronavirus? Is that the new thing?
I think so.
It can't
You look
be
good.
It can't be a hangover.
Your face is a good color.
Well, I can't. I can turn on a light, but it's going to get really funny looking because I'm going to feel like I'm a French fry at McDonald's. I don't know.
No, you look good. You look good. Don't mess with it.
You look good. Yeah, Jennifer, he was feeling under the weather.
Yeah,
it was like,
general malaise. It could have been something I ate.
it's probably syphilis again. Just
I
I've told
hate
you,
when that happens.
stay away from those chicks down on Skid Row, man. I've been telling you for so long.
I'm wearing a mask for this, just in case to keep you guys safe. Okay. Okay, you mother stickers. This is a fuck up.
So,
puppy dog.
oh, how cute, stir.
All right.
Yeah,
I like that mini me dog we had the other week,
How
man. This is a real
cute.
dog.
I worked for Cirque du Soleil in Vegas for 6 months, and so I thought, what a great time to get a new puppy because I'm not flying anywhere. And of course, he had to be named Elvis.
Of course.
How
Because it was-
cute, stir.
Vegas.
Vegas,
Yeah.
baby.
He's a
Wow.
little codependent.
Which show, Jennifer? Which one?
Zumanity, the sexy show.
Oh, I've never seen that one. I want to see that one.
It's really changed since I was in it. I was in it 8 years ago. But man, I don't know if Cirque is going to survive this. Honestly.
Oh, that's what I heard. I heard that they're having a hard time. I'm a big fan. I've seen Beatles Love 3 times. I've seen
yeah.
O twice. I've seen Ka twice. I've seen
yeah.
Kuza. I've seen so many of them. I love Cirque du Soleil so much.
I did too until I did 10 shows a week.
Oh, that would change things.
I was so over it by the end. It was a really great band. And the first 3 months, I thought, man, maybe this is what I'll do. Like my retirement, I'll move to Vegas and do these kind of shows. The last 3 months, I was gnawing off my arm to get out of town.
Yeah.
Wow.
Oh my God. It was, the thing about being a musician in Cirque is I felt like I could have played AC/DC in the middle of stuff and nobody would notice because you're so isolated in ears. And where I was, I couldn't even see the bass and drums. It's just a very strange vibe.
Yeah, I've seen some of those. Some friends of mine have been in bands, and they've showed me the booths that everybody plays in, and it is really isolated away from your other fellow musicians. So that must be weird.
Were you? Did you get to be a vocal point of the show, or were you all hidden?
You know what? Well, you know what? I was subbing for somebody, so I didn't have a costume for the first month or so. And the first time I did have a costume and they had me go on stage, it was during this Chippendales kind of thing. And I played a solo, maybe 16 bars, and nobody even knew I was there because I was not the focal point. The last few bars, I see people look over and go, oh. And then I'm walking off.
Yeah, I have a friend in Vegas who did the whole run of Jersey Boys, right?
Yeah.
And he was in it from the beginning, like I think 12 years or something like that.
Wow.
And he had a spot where he came on stage and played for like about, I don't know, a minute. And that's like, it was so funny because, after all that time on the show, he gets to be on stage for a minute a night.
Crazy. I think the only reason that they didn't just use playback is because when the acrobats do their thing, they don't always land on one. And so there has to be a musical director watching what they're doing, and every once in a while he would add beats.
Oh, wow.
Damn.
Yeah, it's a really intense job.
Whoa.
Were you? And you were?
Circus. Oh, it is the
Oh,
circus.
you were doing
Yeah,
that.
circus. You were, Jen. You were reading throughout that whole gig, or was that
No, I memorized it.
memorized?
It was
Yep.
90-minute show.
Wow.
Do
And-
most of the guys memorize it, or do they
Oh, yeah.
read? They
When
memorize
you do it
it.
10 times a week, you get it pretty
Yeah, I
quick.
guess so.
Yeah. Right. Was it a good paying gig? Something like that?
It was pretty decent. I mean, it was a hell of a long way from Michael Jackson, but most things were.
Yeah. Yeah.
I have a bunch of questions to ask you about that because I've heard stories and I want to find out if they're true. So, not about his sexual stuff. I don't know. Not a guilty or innocent thing. Other stuff, more music related stuff.
Yeah.
But anyway, let me start. Like the first time we met, you came to MI, right? What year did you come to MI?
Let's see. Yeah, 78, graduated 79, and I went back to San Diego for a few years. I moved back up in 84.
84.
Yeah. I
So
remember.
you came, I was there since 80. So
Okay.
I was teaching there since 81. So when you came in 84, I was already a teacher there. And that's when we met and kind of hung out. You know.
Yeah,
so,
and
yeah.
you were the reason I got in there to teach, because you went on the road and then needed somebody.
Uh-huh. Cool. Well, they got somebody better than me. This is good. Awesome.
Yeah, so
how long were you at MI before you first got your first good gig, like big gig? Was that Michael Jackson, or was there other gigs before that?
Oh, I went from playing no-name bands on Sunset with, 2 other bands a night.
Straight to the top.
Yes.
wow.
See, we had to sleep our way to the top gradually.
I've
You
slept
just
my way
went
to the
boom,
bottom.
right there.
I'm doing the opposite. I'm sleeping my way to the bottom. It works much better. It's a sure-proof way of doing it. I'll see.
My career has been completely back asswards.
So Jen,
You're supposed to save him to the last.
yeah, right. Was it? So you were a San Diego girl?
Yeah. The family moved there from upstate New York. I moved when I was 9.
And when did you pick
Wow.
up guitar, and why did you pick up guitar?
I
She was
picked
stupid.
I picked it up when I was 8 years old because I was, well, 2 reasons. I was pissed off my sister had a guitar and I didn't.
Yeah.
So it was sheer jealousy, and the Beatles.
Wow.
Yeah, man. I mean, I remember sitting there watching them on Ed Sullivan. It was the biggest thing in the world. And I lived in a very tiny town, and all of us were into Beatles trading cards and Beatle boots, and every record that came out, we'd, memorize the LP cover to cover. Cover to cover. Well, all two covers.
Wow.
Cool.
Wow, you just do not look old enough to have been around when the Beatles were on Ed Sullivan.
I don't have a high-res camera for a reason, sir.
Can you give me send me a link to where I can get one?
Actually, I saw one of your live things, Jen, and I was blown away how pro you had it all. You had it dialed in, clearly better than what we do, but you had it all dialed in, and you were on it. It was like Corona has not stopped you at all.
Dude, I still have PTSD from trying to get OBS online. I was swimming in tutorials, and I would just crap myself every time it was time to go live. Is this going to work? Because a couple times it was just sheer hell. Facebook changed their format. Like, it's easy to get on and do live from a phone, but all of a sudden, 1 week I was able to do it one way, and the next week it just changed. And I'm like,
Bruce can relate.
I'm going to need therapy for quite a while.
I've been fighting that fight for 35 episodes of my show. It's always something new. I gave up after about the third one and started recording it so that no matter what Facebook did, I had a good recording of it that I could put on YouTube. And that's the way I do it now. Even though I pay more and more for internet and do all these new things, and occasionally it's gotten better and then it gets worse and you drop out and you restart it and all that shit. And I'm pretty low tech. I'm not very tech savvy, but at least I've got that one camera there that's recording the whole thing. So on YouTube, people can watch it all the way through, and they also watch me melt down screaming and yelling at Mark Zuckerberg. I think I said something about, that was because it happened during one other guitar player was playing. I says, it's probably because you shoved your guitar up your ass, and everybody had to miss that wonderful move of shoving your guitar up your ass. And the best thing is you found Mark Zuckerberg up there. So I can't wonder why they keep dropping me now, but
Yeah, they got it in for you. So go Scott.
Jennifer, so you're teaching at MI. How do you find out about the Michael Jackson? What was it? An audition? Was it cattle call kind of thing?
It wasn't a cattle call. Everybody had their slots, but one of his right-hand guys called MI and said, "Send me 2 people," and I was one of the lucky ones that got a call.
Uh-huh.
Who was the other one?
I don't know.
Steve Trovato.
I know Steve was trying to get in. The story is kind of mangled after all these years. I think he may have.
I was just kidding. I was just thinking because he would be a funny guy playing with Michael Jackson.
It was Scott. We know it.
Oh, he would look great in sequence.
Right. So when you go audition, you get the gig, and how much rehearsal before it's time to take off on the road?
More rehearsal than I've ever done before or since.
Really?
Yeah. The first month was a band in one room together, dancers in one room, singers in one room, a solid month, at least 5 days a week.
Wow.
And then the second month, we all met up in a giant sound stage. And that's when the special effects, the pyro, the staging, all that stuff happened. Mm-hmm. And I was talking about that recently, where everybody's had the experience where you're just killing it in your bedroom, right? And on the stage, something happens. You either freak yourself out mentally, or you're not hearing things right. Anything can happen. So I remember thinking I felt great about the show, but I remember the day of the first big show, 50,000 people at the Tokyo Dome. I was anxious because I just didn't know how I would feel. And honestly, from the first note, because we had done so many repetitions, it just felt second nature. It was awesome.
Wow. So you got to really enjoy it.
Yeah. You put like 98% of your being into performance. There was no question about, what's the first chord of the bridge? What's the next song? Nothing like that.
Right.
What? So would you say? I'm sorry, Troy. Go ahead.
Yeah, I got to get this one in. Jen, the audition process, was Michael there, or was it just his people? And then what was it like when you got the call? How did you find out that you had the gig?
The audition was bizarre. I asked what songs I should know, and I took a couple days off of everything just to work on the stuff and get the repetitions in. When I went in to play, it was just me and a video camera. There was no band. It was, and I didn't end up playing any of those songs. I just, the only guidance I was given was to play some funky rhythms, so I did that. Then I started soloing, and I played the giant step solo, that tapping thing I worked out that ended up on my first record. And I had played the Beat It solo in a cover band, so I thought he might find that useful. So I finished with that. And I never was told I had the gig. I just got a call a few days later that Michael was interested, come down, work with the band, see how it goes. And I was subbing out my work day after day after day after day. Next thing I knew, I had a passport and a ticket to Tokyo.
Wow.
Well, this is looking pretty good. But still, I was insecure. I didn't know, because I wasn't getting feedback from anybody. Things seemed to be going okay. And I was working my ass off to make sure I had my shit together. And then there was a moment in Japan where Michael shut down the Tokyo Disneyland so we could all hang out without people bothering us. And Sheryl Crow and I, she was a background singer, we were both in a Disney shop looking at this Daisy Duck toothbrush holder that was the cool. This is the shit I buy, right? You push down on Daisy's head and the eyes go back and forth for as long as you're supposed to brush your teeth. So of course I bought it. We're sitting there going, whoa. And Michael came up behind me. I didn't know he was anywhere around, and he tapped me on the shoulder and he goes, "I like how you're playing the Beat It solo." Like, job security.
Right. And so when you joined the band, did you know the other musicians or had heard of them, or these are complete strangers to you?
Complete strangers. And I remember the first day I walked into rehearsal, Ricky Lawson was there on drums, Don Boyette. And Don was this magnificent being that I just felt like a flannel girl, like jeans and t-shirt or whatever the hell I was wearing. He had like a $2,000 suit. He had his hair straight up and purple, and these guys had a resume, all of them.
Right.
And so it was pretty intimidating. Like, how the fuck did I get in here? The other guitar player, John Clark, was the only other one that hadn't had a resume this long. And so we consoled each other, and we're still great friends to this day.
Wow.
It was a really wonderful experience. Greg Fillinganes was the musical director. And, there's a lot of stories around when you get the rookie in the band that's at that level that they kick your ass. Some people have gone through hell, but I'm very lucky that everybody was great to me. It was a really, really good group of people.
Great. So let me ask you this, when the thing that I wanted to ask you was that musically, did you have much contact with Michael himself, or was it mainly through the band, the musical director? Did you really did you ever talk to him about did he ever come over to you and say can you try it a different way or whatever? Was he musically involved?
Well, you know what? Because we had spent a month as a band together without him, we had the show nailed by the time we met him.
So there was no reason for him to have any direct contact musically with the musicians because it was already done.
He would have the rehearsals videotaped, and he would look at them at night, and if he wanted to change, it would come through Greg in the morning, and we would have it changed by the time we saw him.
I see. But he wasn't a stranger to you guys. You could talk to him and say hi, and
oh yeah, especially on the Bad tour. That's the most time we had with him. We'd be hanging out all day long, and there'd be plenty of breaks, especially with the special effects where they're trying to get something to work and it's not working, so we're just waiting. And so anybody had access to him at that point. And I remember I was hanging with, I think, John Clark and maybe another person off to the side, and he came over and joined us and wanted to know who had not been to Europe before. And a couple of us said, I've never been there. And he was so thrilled that he could take us there. Because he said something like, and he was 29 years old at the time. He goes, man, I've been there so many times, I feel like an old man. Because he started gigging when he was 5 years old.
Wow.
Right, sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, see, that totally proves you can't trust what you hear, because I heard a rumor that he never talked to the musicians.
Not true.
So I'm glad to hear that's not true. He's more like a normal cat, and you guys got to hang with him, and that's fun, when you get to hang with the band leader. I mean, it's always been like that for me, because, in jazz bands, nobody's a star. Everybody's just a cat, just like, hey, man, what's up? And all the band leaders I've ever worked with were just so one of the guys, and we're always happy to talk to you and hang out with you, not just give you instructions on what to do.
Yeah, I will say, once we got on the road, there were so many people in the entourage, 100 people.
Wow.
That we were split up, like the roadies and carpenters and all those that would set up the stage way before we got there. The band, makeup artists, wardrobe in one hotel, and Michael and security were in another hotel. So once we were on the road, there wasn't much hanging. Unless he would do something like shut down the Disneyland, which he did several times.
Wow.
And a lot of times we were out during American holidays. So, for instance, he would arrange a Thanksgiving dinner in Japan or Australia or somewhere. So, I was actually kind of disappointed that we wouldn't be hanging in the same hotel. And then we got booked in the same hotel, and I go, oh, what a pain in the ass this is. He's got like at least 50 people singing Billie Jean at 3:00 in the morning outside his window.
Yeah, it's probably better you were in your own hotel.
No kidding.
Jen, I remember.
I forget about that.
I remember being a kid and seeing you with Michael for the first time on TV, and just like, what alien is this girl? Like, where's she from? Because your look was incredible. Was that something that came from being with Michael, or did you kind of had that whole vibe coming before that?
No, I was just a hippie chick with glasses before that happened. Actually, I was really lucky that he had a vision instead of looking for a person. I mean, in the 80s, you'd see all the ads for musicians, must have hair.
Yes.
It was all about the hair. I didn't have anything happening. In fact, I 20 years later, I got a hold of my audition tape, and I was such a nerd. Anyway, he hired an artist to draw up a look and 3 different costumes for each performer on stage.
Wow.
And so then he got the makeup artist to deal with that and the hair and the, dyeing it blonde. He wanted me to stand out. And I was like a special effect, right?
Yeah.
Right.
And a lot of times the whole stage was dark and you'd see the spotlight on him and then this hair off in the corner.
It was pretty striking. So that gel, was it anything like something about Mary or anything?
We're a class. We're
I
all
just
class.
had to put that in there.
Oh, class. How long before the show, Jen? How long did it take to get ready for each show?
2.5 hours.
Wow.
man.
And then you got to walk on straight away, or did you have like a break before that and then go on?
Well, I'll tell you, in Japan, the shows are early, so people can get on the trains after the show. They would start my hair and makeup at 7 o'clock in the morning.
Whoa.
And I would go back to bed, and I would wake up, and the hair was still the same.
Wow.
There was so much spray in it, man. It was like a spring-loaded.
Wow.
But it was, you sent me that. Jennifer sent me I guess it's an ad poster,
Yeah.
and it was me and you, and I don't know the name of the other guitar player. It was an Asian guy, but it was for Ibanez, and I'm standing there looking like a geek, and Jennifer is all decked out and with the hair and the whole thing, just making me look like a complete dweeb.
We're going to get a copy of that.
I'm like, man, that poster would have been so much better if it was just her.
I'm going to see if I can find it in my phone. I was looking for something
it's
else.
Hilarious.
I ran across it. I was looking for something else recently, and it just popped up. I mean, what great timing, right? Here we go. Let's see if I can get it.
And you're going to always send it to us, and we'll put it on our Facebook page.
Yeah?
Yeah,
Okay.
it's funny. Look at this.
Oh, that's awesome.
That's brilliant.
And I notice you're looking down at that dog. Like that dog must have been in the photo. That was your dog?
I used to bring her to all my photo shoots.
How cute. Oh, my God. That's so cool. So now, how many years did you do the gig?
10.
10 years.
Wow.
Yeah, 3 tours. It was all of his solo tours, Bad, Dangerous, and History from 87 to 97.
So when we did our thing for Ibanez, and we were like with the same company, and they were doing things with us together for a little while. Like, remember we played the bowling alley together? Everybody's, hey man, listen, you shouldn't be that jealous of her because she's played with Michael Jackson. She's plays in bowling alleys like me.
Yeah, when I played the bowling alley,
where the money is.
Playing too loud.
The thing I remember about the bowling alley gig is I had befriended these 2 giant bodybuilders that were twins, and I hired them to take me out on stage on their shoulders while I was playing Flight of the Bumblebee, which in my mind sounded like a good idea. But as they were walking onto the stage, they were getting further and further apart, so my legs were just going, whoa!
I'm never going to forget that gig ever. I mean, that was like an Ibanez promotion gig where I guess it was it Tribal Tech? I guess it had to be because that was the only band I think I was playing in at that point. But it was early Tribal Tech, like with Joey Heredia on drums and it might have been John Beasley on keyboards. So this was before the Kinsey and Kirk era. And we had this gig wasn't it in Orange County someplace over by Nam?
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
I think so. Yeah. So we played this bowling alley, which was a big Ibanez event. And then you stayed with Ibanez for a long time, right? Because
7 years and 7 warped necks. And eventually I went to the builders and said, what the fuck? And their response was, you just have bad luck with necks. And that was my cue to jump ship.
Where did you jump ship to?
Washburn.
Oh, okay. See, I was with them for not quite as long, for maybe 2 or 3 years because my guitar wasn't even really an Ibanez body. It was like some Mace Bailey. Do you remember him?
Sure.
The builder. He built this body, and it was much bigger than an Ibanez guitar. It was closer to a Fender, and they wanted to make that guitar for the public, but they wouldn't put the Strat bridge on it. They wanted to put a Floyd Rose on it, and use my name. And I was going, but I don't play a Floyd Rose. I play like more of like a traditional bridge. And they said, no, but it has to have a Floyd Rose. So that's when I jumped ship. And then, it's like, bye, whatever. Anyway, one thing that was cool about them is they did really promote their artists. They did ads and they did events for us and stuff like that. So in that way, it was a great company to be.
They were really, really strong. I mean, that's one reason I wanted to be with them, because they were launching people into being known. I mean, those ads were, I think, $10,000 on the inside cover.
And I've never ever been with a company since that could afford to spend that kind of money on an ad for me or something like that. You know, I mean, I'm with Sir now. I'm just happy to have great instruments. I couldn't care less if they do ads, but you know, that Ibanez monster company, and they spend big money on advertisements for, I guess, for Satriani and Vi and those guys. They probably spent millions on those guys on ads.
No doubt.
Yeah, I'm sure.
And it's paid off for them.
So when we were doing those things for Ibanez, and you had your own band and you were playing at the bowling alley, were you still with Michael during that time?
I think that was after the Bad tour, and between tours, I never even expected that I'd get called back. I thought they just got fresh faces every time. So I got called back in '92 for the Dangerous tour. And then again, I didn't know what he was doing after that. And then the History tour in '97 happened. And then when he announced This Is It, I had flown to Heathrow, and I was a long layover, and I went and got a cappuccino in a coffee shop, and he came on the TV and announced This Is It tour. And then I thought, cha-ching, I'm in. Guess what? He got a woman half my age.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I don't remember anything about that band. I think after you were gone, his career was over.
See what happened?
That's it. He just had to call it a day after you left. That's all there is to it.
It wasn't the woman that was half your age that was the problem, though. It was some other people a lot younger than that, I guess.
Don't even.
Yeah.
Don't even go there.
Okay.
So, anyway, that answers my question. So when we were doing that Ibanez stuff, you were like between tours with him.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Wow. And then when did you start like really seriously going for your own thing and doing your own records and you know, having your own band?
It was prior to the Jackson tour. I had done 3 demos with Michael Sembello. And they were shopping that, and then the tour happened for a year and a half, and so obviously that went on hold.
That goes on hold, right?
Yeah, and I continued to record after the tour, and it just took forever because, you know, guitar records are shit budgets compared to everybody else. In fact, at the time I was doing my record, do you remember Rico Suave?
Yeah, sure.
Gerardo was recording with him in all the daylight hours, and then I got the shit hours. Like, I never started before 2 or 3 in the morning. And I was like a heroin addict. I put aluminum foil on my windows so I could sleep during the day because it was just killing me. The hours just sucked.
Wow. And was Relativity the first label that got interested in you?
Yeah. I met with Cliff a couple times.
Right.
Yeah, and it's a long, wacky story, but basically Sembello's camp and Cliff didn't see eye to eye, so I ended up on a much lesser label.
You know what? We were only on Relativity for one album, and that's it. And then and they bought they did our 4th album, and then they bought our first 3 albums. And so we thought, oh, we have a home for a while. And then after the 4th album came out, we got a letter that said, the album didn't do quite as well as we thought, so we're going to have to drop you. So
Ouch.
It was a one and only deal. And then the bad thing is that about, I don't know how many years later, they turned into a rap label.
Exactly, yeah.
And then they wouldn't sell us those 4 records back. So now they're completely out of print. And they're out of print, and they won't sell them to us. So... And I never really understood, like, why wouldn't you sell somebody something if you don't plan to use it? Why not just sell it?
Yeah, I think some of them, I think they sit on it to see if you become super huge, and then it's worth a lot.
Well, I did, but they still didn't want it.
That didn't come out right.
No, that just didn't work.
But I was
as
just
big
thinking,
as I can get.
I was just thinking, I had a book on tapping that Roger Hutchinson put out, and then they sold it to Hal Leonard, and I tried to buy that back, and same thing, they wouldn't do it, but they don't put it out.
What?
So, yeah.
It's weird. I mean, I think it's their thing that they just don't believe in selling their shit. They just hang on to it no matter what. And that's their policy.
It's part of their real estate.
Yeah, I guess. So after Michael Jackson thing was over, what's the next thing you did after that?
You know, I should really look up chronologically how long it was, but I was so burnt out from touring after that. It was, I want to say 4 months when Jeff Beck called me up.
Wow. That little of time went by.
I think so. I could be tripping because I'm, I'm a lot older than you think. But it seems like it was pretty quick. And I remember the first conversation, I said, man, I was so burnt out. I was thinking of getting out of the music business. And he goes, well, can you wait?
I saw you play at the amphitheater with him in LA, and it was such a good show. And he was really on that night, and you were amazing. I mean,
thank you so much.
I was so impressed. You did such a fantastic job that it was just, I was blown away.
Wow, thank you.
By the whole show. It was so great. And I have never heard anyone play synth on guitar where there wasn't, it just seemed like impossible what you were doing, because I had toyed with synth guitar some, during Tribal Tech, and even in Zawinul's band, he asked me to play some synth sounds because he wanted horns. He always wanted horns.
All right.
And I had a sampler, and I could do pretty good sounding trumpets and trombones and saxophones and stuff like that, and they were real sounding.
Yeah.
And, but I never could. The tracking thing was always very elusive for me. And for you, you just nailed it. I mean, I don't know anyone that's nailed it more than you. So, because you're playing you sounded like a guy with 3 keyboard tears. Seriously. I mean, it was amazing, the sounds you were making.
Oh, thank you so much. I'm glad this is recorded. I'm going to loop this part.
No, this is really, it was beautiful, man. I was so impressed, and I just thought you did such a great job. And then he gave you some solos, and you were kicking ass on your solos, and I thought, wow, I know her.
Well, you know what? It was a serious trial by fire. I had worked with it. In fact, I remember I went into Guitar Center one time to buy a new strap and walked out with a whole synth system. That's impulse shopping. And I never read the manual. It's just I got sounds and kind of toyed with it. But all of a sudden, when God calls you, it's like, oh, shit. I not only have to read the manual, but I needed to get a tech to help me with the MIDI programming and to kind of help me kickstart getting it to the next level.
Did Jeff Beck ask for that? Was that a specific ask?
No, he didn't. He's one of those guys where a leap in the net will appear. He just gets an idea, and by the time he had called me, I had met him previously, and he had 2 of my CDs at that point, and he just goes, okay, I want to do something new. You're in the band, kind of thing. And I thought, I told no one, because I thought there's a chance, I don't know him very well, and there's a chance that he's completely nuts. You know, and like, how can you have faith in someone you've never played a note with, just from the records? So I actually learned most of the Guitar Shop record, and I went to Italy to do a techno session, and while I was on that side of the pond, I booked myself to England just to play Guitar Shop in his presence, like making an audition for myself, just to make sure that he wasn't a lunatic. And obviously it worked out. I did a couple records and toured with him for 3 years, which was heavenly.
And it was your idea to add the synth thing to the show.
Yeah, okay, so I tend to go off in tangents a lot.
That's all right. You're a musician. You have ADHD like we all do.
Oh shit, yeah.
I've got ABA.
Okay, so aside from that, when I flew over, he put together 2 days in SIR in New York. And that original band was going to be Terry Bozzio, Tony Levin, and me and Jeff. And I went in there, and I didn't know there wasn't going to be a keyboard player. I thought, how the hell can we do 30 years of Blow by Blow and Wired and all that stuff with Jan Hammer and God, I'm spacing on the Blow by Blow keyboard. Max Middleton,
yeah.
And Tony Hymas. I can't get those sounds on guitar. It's going to sound weenie. So right after that, I ended up going to the Frankfurt show for the first time and hooking up with a company called Axon, that at that time they had the fastest triggering guitar synth in the world. So I go, great, what perfect timing. And I got home and I started working, and I go, yeah, the triggering is pretty good, but the sounds suck. So I started using that as an engine and got Roland 1080s for sounds. And now I got the great sounds, I got the fast triggering, except the two didn't talk to each other well. I'd be playing a C chord and getting a sharp 9, flat 5 coming out. You know, it's like, yeah, I mean, it's, Jeff would look around like somebody farted. You know?
See, I relate to that, because that's how that whole experience was to me. Like, I would try to write with MIDI and play MIDI into the computer. I'd play a C chord, and then I'd open up the notation window, and there'd be like 15 other notes in there with it. And I go, how do you stop that from happening?
Well, one thing I did was to go to super heavy strings because they'd be more stable. And like, I want to say a week before we took off, I switched to all Roland gear. So it was slower, but it was way more reliable. And I did very little single note stuff with that. It was all pads, except for Savoy. There was a chordal horn thing, and I had to be so on top of the beat to make it in time.
So there was a lag.
Oh, sure. Back then, I mean, that was over 20 years ago. Yeah.
So did you play those chords with your fingers, or did you usually play with the chords like hitting all the strings at once with your fingers so it would be more keyboard-like?
Boy, I don't remember. I would, my first response would be a pick. I don't remember.
Because to me, like, if I close my eyes, I would swear there was a keyboard player on the stage. That's how amazing and authentic it sounded to my ear.
Wow, thank you so much.
I would never guess that was coming from a guitar in a million years. I
worked really hard on the sounds and layering them. In fact, I had a rack with 3 JV 1080s in them. Wow. And I had a ridiculous amount of shit under my feet, because I had, MIDI switcher for guitar and a wah-wah and a whammy pedal and a volume pedal. And then on the other side, MIDI switcher for the synth stuff and 2 volume pedals so I could bring in a second sound. And Jeff looks over at rehearsal one day and he goes, he said something like he's jealous of all the gear I had. And he goes, look, I brought a new pedal. I'm building a pedal garden.
Yeah, he's pretty old school.
Yeah.
I don't see him playing through a lot of tech shit and racks and all that crap. He's a pretty old school cat.
Well, I remember one interview I read with him where he was talking about he got one of the super early synths, and he used it on a gig in Spain where sound check was fine, and the sun beat down on that for the next 3 hours, and when he went to play it for real, it was just hopeless. So
What kind of a guy is Jeff like? He seems like a pretty cool hang kind of a dude. Is he pretty pulled back and private? And
he's so much fun. There are a few different personalities.
Yeah.
After the gig, when the pressure's off, he is a party. It just, oh God, we drank champagne every night after the show. And then nights off, we'd go to the bar. I mean, after those 3 years, my liver was just going, thank you. But he can be really quiet too, especially when he's gearing up for a show and he's trying to get his show head together and being very shut down and internal. And I will never forget one time. It was for God, I want to say his 58th birthday. I was at his house and I went off with him in his Corvette, which he drives like fucking Batman. If nobody's in front of him, he's and I figured, well, if I'm going to die, it's a pretty cool way to go. But so we went to the liquor store to pick up a bunch of booze for the party. And I kept scanning my brain of subjects to talk about. I'd bring up something and it would just die flat. Bring up something. I mean, it was a torturous ride. And I will never forget because when we came back to his house or on the way back, he goes, "You're quiet today." But back to the parties, man. I did send your T-shirt today, Scott.
Oh, thanks. That's awesome.
Yeah,
I got a T-shirt with somebody's butt on fire with a big flame coming out of their asshole. Thanks to my pal Jennifer.
I'll explain that a little bit. There actually is no. It's a little tamer than that, but there are flames. But one night after the gig, we went to we were hanging out in a bar lounge, and one of the sound engineer started doing arm farts like that, and so it became a thing for the rest of the night. We were trying to outdo each other, and then it became a thing every single night after the show, where we had our watches out and we would time each other how long you could do it without laughing. We would, I mean, all of us. That's exactly. I mean, after the show, that was the thing. Okay, the show's done. Get out the timers, and I'm sure my mother would be proud that after, maybe 2 months of doing this every night, I was the band winner at 45 seconds. Thank you.
Yay! Yay! We're all proud.
I thought you would be. And you know what was really remarkable? You hear about the pearl divers that can be underwater for like 5 minutes or something. It's amazing. If you try it. Everybody out there watching this, try it every night and see how your lungs can hold more air. 45 seconds is ridiculous.
That's pretty amazing.
Wow. Yeah. So is this what made you all Tilton fans? How did that happen?
Oh, well, I'll say Jeff is a big comedy fan, and he's got an incredible sense of humor. All of his friends are comedians. And we turn each other on to comedians. Like when Richard Jenny came out, that was the thing for a while. I don't know how Tilden came about, but probably from the arm farting, and that evolved to whoopee cushions. And then I found whoopee cushions that were self-filling. They had foam in them.
Uh-huh.
Wow.
So you don't even have to work at it. You're just like,
great. Perfect.
And then when we broke those, because we do that every night after the show, I remember I was really jet lagged, probably in Japan or somewhere. I was up in the middle of the night. So what do? You dialupfarts.com, see what they got.
Right. Of course.
I got everybody in the band and crew these plastic cups full of putty that they're just awesome. You just and the only thing the next time is going to be better.
Well, I enjoyed your tune that you sent me. What's the name of the tune?
Inner Journey.
Inner Journey. And this tune that she sent me has a lot of bodily function sounds in the tune. And so, and I told her I had a really big breakfast the morning I listened to it. So it was really appropriate listening. So it was great. But I told you that the true story, like I've been a Tilton fan forever. But my guys my bass player and drummer that I play with, they're French. They live in Paris. They'd never seen him. So we were on the road in Italy and we had to stop. And I said, I wonder if these guys would even like this. And I pulled out my computer and started playing them Tilton. And they became huge fans, so much so that the bass player now has his own YouTube channel dedicated to Tilton with all his videos. And he even friended him on Facebook.
Wow.
The actual Robert Tilton, he Facebook friended him.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, it's amazing.
For your audience that may not know who that is, he's a preacher that really evangelical preacher that really goes over the top with the what do you call it? Just the movements like feel the Lord come through me and just ridiculous shit. And somebody put in the most incredible fart noises that they studied him. And did the most appropriate ones.
They're masterpieces. Yeah. I mean, not only the farts and the wide variety of farts, but the perfect placement.
Yes.
Because Tilton leaves a lot of space.
Yeah.
He'll say, "Praise Jesus," and then, and when Jesus comes forth. And sometimes they'll use that space and there will be no fart. And then as soon as he starts talking again, that's when the fart comes. And it's just so beautifully timed and executed and put together.
Yeah.
It's just brilliant.
You got to send me that link. I need to have that.
We'll
post it. We'll post it.
You can watch everyone ever made. There's like at least 50 of them.
There was a brilliant compilation that we watched every night after the shows in Japan, that we would just go back to Jeff's room with the champagne and watch Tilton and just cry laughing every single night.
Funny, man. So Jennifer, let me ask you this. I don't want to talk too much about Jeff because we want to talk about you, but Jeff seems like to me every time I've seen him or seen him play, I've seen him play 3 or 4 times. And, he has a very strong air of confidence on stage. You feel like he's really ruling the stage, and you feel like that he's up there knowing that every note he plays is worth something. I feel that. I feel like he has a lot of confidence, but at the same time, I feel like he's just like the rest of us, getting off stage and being highly critical of himself sometimes. Or I read an article where he was criticizing Steve Lukather because Lukather was kind of really praising him in the studio, and Jeff was saying, I don't want somebody to praise me. I want somebody to tell me that I can do better, and that, that kind of sucked. You got better. Do better. You know what I mean? Mm. So it sounds like he also had a self-critical side.
Sure.
And I also remember him saying something in an interview that when he would be in there overdubbing and trying things, and he would throw a million things in the trash, and he would say, I'm not going to use it unless it's sick.
Yeah.
If it's not sick, I'm not going to use it. And I go, boy, can I relate to that? Because when I'm overdubbing, I don't want it to sound like me. I want it to sound better than me. Like I want it to sound something like I've never heard from myself before. And that's why I throw so much shit away and only keep a little bit of it. Because if it's something that doesn't impress me, I'm not going to keep it. And I feel like he must feel that way because the shit that he records is so badass. He must have a self-critical nature. Am I right about that?
He does. And that's why he doesn't want to repeat himself. That's why he's so adventurous. He'll do a rockabilly record, and then the last record with the girls doing a vocal record. And he's always searching and always listening. I tell people he will listen to the Spice Girls and Ornette Coleman in the same day. And he will listen to stuff that I would never listen to, but he'll pick out something like the EQ on the snare. You know, something that just would have gone past me. And some really out stuff, but he's a super sensitive guy, and because of that, he gets deep into what he's listening to and really can glean the most subtle things from it. I remember one gig, I thought he was incredibly consistent the whole time I was playing with him. But I remember one gig, we went off stage before encore, and he was so upset. He just goes, "I'm playing like a wanker."
A guitar wanker. There you go.
He must have heard our show.
He can hear into the future. I'm telling you, that guy can hear into the future.
Wow.
And a Happy New Year to you. It's a rainy January 1st, 2010.
Roscoe's House of Chicken and Waffles.
President Eastwood sends more troops.
In my country, we would never do that in public.
Use headbangers hairspray.
For the ultimate hole.
Atlantis has been rediscovered. Berlin Wall has been torn down a second time. Chocolate cures cancer.
Still coming to you illegally from our mobile station somewhere in L.A. K-Jazz, the only jazz station left in the country since the PMRC banned us 2 years ago. Catch us if you can.
Roger 19er, this is car 52 Charlie. Calling in with a definite confirmation sighting of the mobile jazz unit found in Coldwater Canyon and Lookout Mountain. Police sent 3 extra recovery units and a jelly and a glade.
And 4 units 52 stand by. Units 94, 97, 98. Leave unit 52 at the corner of Coldwater and Lookout Mountain.
Jazz police. You have the right to remain silent. Anything you play can and will be used against you in court. You are under arrest. Violation of the no sparsity clause. Insufficient decibel levels, and for both illegal possession and broadcasting of contraband materials in the form of non-rock and roll influenced vinyl. We're shutting you down.
That must have been pretty amazing. Jen, I remember you, well, obviously, but when did the tapping become a big part of your playing? When did you fall into that?
Oh, God, it was because of GIT and not any of the teachers that were there. I mean, it was really a young technique at the time. Van Halen was just starting to climb and wasn't that well known. But we used to get a seminar every month by different people. Pat Metheny, Lee Ritenour came, just you name it, really heavy monsters. And one month it was Emmett Chapman who invented the Chapman stick. Mm-hmm. And, we're just a bunch of guitar players. This stick guy is here, and 59 of us are going, okay, it's really cool, but we're not going to buy one and have to learn a whole new tuning and all that. Right. Well, that planted a seed in Steve Lynch's head, who was in my class. He ended up in a band called Autograph.
Steve Lynch, sure, of course.
Sure, yeah.
Or was it George Lynch?
No.
Steve.
Which one is Steve Lynch and which one is George Lynch?
George was in a band called Dokken, and Steve was in a band called Autograph that had a hit called Turn Up the Radio.
Yeah.
And which one was the one that tapped a lot?
That was Steve.
Okay, that was Steve Lynch. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. We used to call him Jazz on 10 because he was the rock guy. All of us were trying to be George Benson, and he's the rock guy. Uh-huh. And during the year, we had to transcribe a tune and solo and play it live. And he did 'Cause We Ended as Lovers. And I mean, I was super into Jeff before that, but just to hear him nail that was like, oh my God, I don't want to play jazz anymore. I want that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, he started experimenting with tapping, and I would check in with him every once in a while and see what he was doing. And I go, man, it sounded so fresh, but GIT was so intense, there wasn't any free time to learn something extracurricular. So as soon as the graduation was done, I wrote to him, because I moved back to San Diego, and I said, man, can you send me stuff, audio of what you're working on? And he had 3 demos at the time on cassette, and I started learning them, and I only knew to use one finger, so I was trying to tap and ended up with a blister, and it sounded like hell. So I drove up to LA to take a lesson with him, and that's when I learned like the basic thinking behind what he was doing. And that was enough to just set me off and go, okay, I'm in it now. Then I ended up with blisters on all my fingers.
We were just we had Brett Garsett on the show a few months ago, and we were talking about TJ. You know, TJ, right?
Sure, yeah.
Another great, guy with the 2-hand thing, has a lot of really cool vocabulary.
Very advanced, yeah.
Yeah, really advanced. So, but I remember when being you at MI, when you were our GIT and you were doing the giant steps tapping thing, and it was amazing. Oh, yeah. And everybody was just like, oh, you got to hear her play giant steps, because you'll never hear anybody play it like that. It's like incredible, man. Really, really unique and different. And it was so much fun to hear you play that.
Well, that whole thing was worked out, and I had the chords last twice as long as they normally do. And I remember one time Joe Pass was there with his bass player, and they were just checking in with different rooms. And somebody said, play giant steps for Joe. And I'm, great. So I played it, and I think it was his bass player. I don't think it was Joe. It said something like, yeah, the chords last a week.
These jazz guys are such nice people, aren't they? Aren't they the best? Well, you know what Joe said about me? He did an interview. I used to play with him all the time with Jeff Berlin when I was a student. And
wow.
And they, all the time. In fact, I used to teach his kid guitar lessons, and they did an interview with him in the Los Angeles Times. And he said, are there any up and coming, jazz guys that you like, that you've heard, students or young guys? And he said, well, this Scott Henderson kid is pretty good. He's one of those guys that plays the kind of music where you don't know where the hell the melody is. It's like, thanks, Joe.
He was the salty character.
Yeah.
He really was, man. The salty dog.
Damn.
Awesome. So you think that's why, because I noticed that too, like Jeff changes up his bands often because he's really trying to go for new shit all the time. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he wants to be fired up. He's got a voracious appetite. He always thinks if he's got that one more groove or that one more song, it'll make the album great. And he drives his managers crazy, because once he has enough tunes for a record, then he finds reasons why one song isn't good enough. And he just doesn't want to make that step of putting it out. In fact, on Blow by Blow, he replaced, I think Carmine was the first drummer. He replaced all the drums, and he was driving his managers crazy. And then he wanted to replace all the bass. And his managers secretly took the record away from him, and they put it out, and they called up and said, hey, your record's a hit.
Whether you like it or not. Right. So were you involved with him during the period where David Torn was working a lot with him and producing the records?
No, I remember him talking about him. That must have been right after my era.
Yeah, I think it was after, because David Torn did a few of the records. And I mean, nothing against David Torn, because he's a great producer, and he has a amazing palette of sounds and stuff, but it sort of felt like that Jeff probably came into the studio, played a bunch of stuff over maybe some backing tracks or maybe some drum tracks or whatever, and then David Torn just took what he played and looped it and did all kinds of stuff with it. And then I remember reading an article where Jeff said he didn't really like those records that much. Maybe because he wasn't involved in them as much, because he wasn't as much part of the production as David was. I don't really know. I'm just guessing. But
I don't remember any of that stuff being released. Maybe I'm out of it.
Yeah. David Torn is. I think there was a few albums where David Torn they're produced by David. And some of them may have been the ones where Lukather might have been involved too for a little while.
Okay.
I'm not really sure, to tell you the truth. But anyway, forget that. After Jeff, what happened?
Well, you know what? It's kind of fun talking about Jeff because I've done so many interviews where people just want to talk about Michael. So I hardly ever talk about Jeff.
Well, we're guitar players, so Jeff Beck has always been a hero. I mean, when I think about him, I don't even forget about the music. When you think about all the guitar players of his generation, every single one of them is either a shell of what they used to be because of drug abuse or alcohol abuse, or they're dead. And Jeff is really the only guy of his generation who kept improving, is improving to this day.
Yeah.
So how can you not respect that?
Oh, for sure.
I mean, it's amazing. The guy is in his 70s and the guy is still improving. And I mean, for a jazz guitar player, that's not really all that unusual. But for a rock guitar player, that's very unusual because most of the rock players
are pretty good.
What's that?
I heard Albert Lee fairly recently, and he's really inspiring still.
Yeah. Albert Lee is another guy that keeps getting better, and Tommy Emmanuel, and there's a lot of
completely different generation. Tommy's way younger than them.
Yeah. Okay, right. But when you think about all those guys, Richie Blackmore, Jimmy Page, Jimi Hendrix, Johnny Winter, all those cats. None of them play like they used to, and I'm not trying to be a mean person. I'm just saying Jeff has he's playing better than he did back then. It's amazing.
Always searching for inspiration. Yeah, for sure.
And I really respect that. I really respect that. I really do.
There was a lot I got from just hanging out with him, just listening to music on the bus, and I was with him when we were doing the records, and so many times I would think, you really don't need another guitar player with a Jeff Beck record. And what am I even doing here? I mean, I played a little on it, but invariably I'd be there 6 hours, 7 hours in the studio, and then every day there would be this little slice of magic or some opinion about the tracks that he was thinking about. And I go, that's why I was here today. Like this total Zen stuff. One time he said, if the drums are grooving, you really don't need much else. Most guitar players will be going, yeah, you do. You need all these notes, and then more notes, and then the next track needs some more notes.
Well, he's the king of using space in rock guitar. I mean, he really is. There's nobody that uses space better than him. There's nobody that phrases better than him, period, when it comes to rock guitar. And, my friend Scott Kinsey, who's a wonderful musician, listened to Jeff Beck many times. I would play stuff in the van. He just didn't seem to get it. You know? But he was there at that show at the amphitheater with you. And he came out of that show going, I get it. He came out and he just said, I've just heard one of the world's greatest phrasers. It's like I just saw Miles Davis. And I go, well, finally, you fucking get it, because he didn't before. And I don't know why he didn't get that from listening to the records, but that is exactly how I feel when I listen to him play. It's like hearing one of the world's greatest phrasers, as good as Miles or anybody else, and shit.
I remember one time at rehearsal.
Kick it!